A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. The National Resistance Movement has just ended its week-long caucus retreat in Chankwanzi. They're discussing a number of issues, but also the opposition has also been meeting to discuss their own strategies heading into a critical phase, that is the party primaries ahead of the 2016 general elections. Also, during the week, iPod, a platform that brings together all political parties with representation in parliament, had a meeting. Actually, it was the other week, and they were discussing what to do, especially with proposed electoral reforms, constitutional reforms ahead of the elections. To discuss, is the opposition ready? Will it coalesce ahead of 2016? Is a coalition viable? Is what we'll be discussing tonight on the Fourth Estate. Let me introduce James Akena, Member of Parliament, Lira Municipality. He represents the Uganda People's Congress. Jimmy, you're most welcome to the Fourth Estate.
Thank you very much, Charles. It's great to be on the Fourth Estate.
I think it's the first time we're hosting you here.
Yes, it is.
It's taken a while before we could get you on.
We're available, but sometimes politics takes us up and down.
Okay. Jimmy is the son of a two-time Ugandan president, Apollo Milton Obote, and he's seen as the only child, I think, who has picked up the political career path from his father. We have Nicholas Sengoba. He's a columnist with the Daily Monitor. Nicholas, very nice to have you once again here.
Thank you very much.
It's also been a while since we last had you on this show.
Yeah, but I keep following the program.
And my colleague, Chris Obore.
You should be adding that the son of a Ugandan true nationalist, Milton Obote.
But I had you, so I knew you would add it.
Yes, he's the son of Uganda's true nationalist, Dr. Apollo Milton Obore.
Okay, let me start with Jimmy and ask the question. You represent a party that picked up the reins of power from colonial administration. And your party held power twice. Actually, to be more precise, your father held power twice. But the latest version of the Uganda People's Congress we have seen doesn't seem to show that it can again rise up to the occasion, that some people have almost written off the Uganda People's Congress, only that it hasn't completely disintegrated like other independent political parties. Going into 2016, are you any better?
Definitely, from your introduction, I can actually say Uganda People's Congress is a miracle in itself, in the sense that very few of those independence parties have undergone the persecution and the attack as Uganda People's Congress has gone through. If you look at many of the other parties who don't even have the sort of representation which UPC has, they did not undergo the sort of vilification, demonization, and outright attempts to totally destroy it. The fact that UPC has weathered that storm up to this point in itself is, I think, testament to the foundation on which it was built. Definitely, looking at 2016, some may try to write us off, but I honestly believe if we rediscover the basis of UPC, the strength, the ideological foundation, and organize ourselves around it, we still remain the most politically relevant political party in this era.
Is that in your own imagination or a reality on the ground?
No, it's not imagination, because when I listen and hear the concerns of people, in this period across the country, parents are crying about school fees. Others are complaining about the results, which we have just gone through this period of results, how the results have come out. And it is clear that there is a problem in the education system. And that is not something which UPC, looking at our history, the way we expanded the education system without compromising quality. Those are important aspects to be dealt with. And Uganda People's Congress is concerned is the people. Education is an investment for a country in its citizenry. And it's a very, very important investment. As Ugandans, and with the budget or with the governance system, are we really considering and working in the best interest of the citizenry? Now that is something as a congressman.
Is that the discussion you're having within the party? Because you're supposed to be doing your... You haven't held any organs meeting since the 2011 elections. You have been telling us you're doing grassroots structures. We don't see those grassroots structures actually going into... I know you emerged out of the 2011 elections with fewer numbers in parliament than you had in the period between 2006 and 2011. Now, if you begin expounding the ideals of what UPC stands for, records, some people have argued and said, you are actually stuck in your past glory and you are not showing any signs of moving forward beyond what Milton Obote did between when he got re-elected December 1980 to 1985, and the period when he took over as executive prime minister in 1962 until the time he was overthrown. For the first time.
I beg to differ in that, okay, honestly, the party has not functioned as it should. I agree that we have not met, but that is not for lack of trying. We have tried cross-board members of parliament, members of national council, the delegates conference, trying to urge the party president to call the organs. Because in the organs is where you can determine a lot of these matters. It's where the debate takes place and where you position yourself and organize ourselves in order to be able to project ourselves to the society. Those have not happened. But that does not remove from the point that those key ideals are as important today as they were at the time when Milton Obote was there.
You must have channels through which to achieve those ideals.
No, we have petitioned. We have some members have even gone to court to try and get this to be done. But so, taking us back to those ideals, we really need to organize our education system in order for Uganda to be able to...
Can we stick with the current issue for the moment, Mr. Akena? You're still stuck in internal fights in the party, and therefore you do not have room to discuss the ideals and move on from where you got stuck before.
I think it's the ideals which will get us out of the internal fights, because that is where our where all party members should be able to coalesce around the ideals.
Let me bring the other panelists into the discussion, starting with Chris Obore. Chris, I know you love the Congress and you follow closely what has been happening there. The Congress shrunk in its numbers in representation in Parliament going into 2011, and for 4 years, 1 year to the next election, do you see that the Congress has organized itself, alongside other political parties that we shall discuss going forward, in a manner that shows that it can rise to the occasion at the next election?
I don't love the Congress, but I love the ideals of the Congress. And like Akena says, when I look at the education of this country, the healthcare, I think you still have to admit that the Congress was a party for the people. It's a social democratic party. And those are things I keep saying. And the reason why I still hold Obote as the hero and the nationalist in this country, because minus true investments in education, true investment in health, you are not a leader. If a leader is able to lead the people who cannot get good education, who cannot get good health care, who are malnourished, then you are not a leader. So on those grounds, I hold Milton Obote in high regard. I do not necessarily love UPC, because now, minus Obote, what is UPC? But you have to acknowledge that, as Akena is trying to say, that even in Kanu, people say Kanu disintegrated, but Kanu disintegrated, I think, 3 years after Moi left. But the Congress, 29 years counting after they were overthrown, the Congress is still there. So you can't even connect UPC to Kanu, because Kanu, you know, it fell within less than 5 years. So that means there is something, there's a glue in this Congress. There's something the UPC did in this country. There is a spirit in it that I think is being betrayed perhaps by the Akenas and the Tunos. So the party itself has no problem. And that is a reflection then of the border politics in the country itself. I think it should not even be looking at the UPC itself. I think political parties, be it NRM, be it FDC, which is more like a forum, a pressure group, you know, DP, there's one thing in common with them. They have lost touch with the cadre identification. The Congress you are talking about today, Obote made it deliberate to identify leadership for the party. From school, from workplaces, trained the leadership and deployed it. That's why you see the Uganda still leaders. So today, the NRM of today is immersed in fist fights for food, soup, eating. FDC is immersed in fights over me, I'm there. UPC is immersed on who, me or Tunu, me or Akena. There's nothing like we are going out to identify a leader. This is what I mean by identification. The party must have a research desk, a development desk, sees that we are monitoring Charles Mangusha. Who is he? What does he stand for? What can he bring to the party? And the party comes forward and says, Charles Mangusha, we identify the potential in you. What you represent represents our first ideology. We want you to go to Fort Municipality, stand and represent UPC. They're not doing that. They are waiting for Mangusha, who perhaps a chicken thief, running away from Nicola.
God forbid.
God forbid. Running away from Sengoba's pursuit, that you're a thief. Then you run UPC and say, people have come. We Congress of the people. That is, oh, go and stand in Fort Portal. These are two ways of becoming a leader. The parties have all run away from that element by identifying, training, nurturing, deploying their leaders. They are now waiting, especially if this is suffering from this. If this anybody this is going to be the NRM, I'm going. And right now they are thinking, I want to stand, but which ticket? But if I go to NRM, I think Museveni will be sympathetic. And then, if I go independent, I think I can stand a chance. So you are letting schemers become party leaders. So no party in Uganda can rightly claim to represent in the good leadership positions because they are letting anyone. While you're supposed to be open, people to join, that is at a support level. But to lead a party, there should be a sieving process. And this has not happened. Akena here, the people who support him are running into him. He doesn't know how they came. Was it because he defiled somebody's child and then he was held out of police? Then he says he's UPC. NRM, because everybody has starved for long, there is no chance of eating. And if you say yellow, Muse will take you to Rakitura, eventually made you something, then you run to NRM. FDC, you are too annoyed. What do I do now? Can I put on blue? Because people are angry and they do that. That is, and you must know, Charles, like he says, the Congress still remains because the Bible says the harvest is in plenty, but the leaders are not there to harvest. They are no harvesters. Indeed, opposition feelings are on the rise in this country, but they only remain there because there's no one to represent those feelings. All people you see playing around are not politicians. They are survivors.
Nicholas, you take the broadest take that Chris has actually started on of the opposition as a whole. They've been going through these struggles, people asking the question, will they coalesce? Because multiple opinion polls have showed that if the opposition works together, then they stand a better chance. But what we saw coming out of the 2011 elections is that all opposition political parties ceded ground, especially in elective positions and primarily parliament. And someone is wondering, if you focus on the ultimate prize, which is the presidency, does it actually help your cause if you have a cause? Now, we are counting 1 year to the next election, and you're looking around and wondering, FDC, UPC, DP, and the other newer parties, did they pick any lessons from 2011? Have they worked on anything? What's your own reading?
Well, my own reading is that you have to understand, if you're to understand the politics of this country, you must look at what has happened the entire 29 years from when the NRM came to power. What the unique feature of the politics now is that President Museveni and NRM have tried to create an environment where they have redefined what a political party is and what a politician should be. When President Museveni goes to Akena's constituency and the people say the road is bad and what, he says the person you voted for someone who's cross-eyed, you know? You should vote for the right people. Then he orders, says, Nani, bring a sack of money, put. So now, what is the understanding of the people who should be a leader? A leader is somebody who dishes out money. So, if you are to be relevant in this political environment, you must, and you can see all this, the way all these politicians at Akena will tell you how much money they dish out. It's not what you say, but people will listen to you, what you are dishing out. if a political party is to be relevant, people are asking, what do you have for us to eat? They are not looking at legislation in parliament. They are not looking at a party having a vision. No. They're just looking at what do we get from these individuals. And that, NRM has created that sort of environment. So even what you have as what you call political parties, it is no longer about a group of people coming together and they have these ideals and say, how do we market them to the people? No. But what quick things do we do to gain quick popularity and then move on?
Isn't that the primary question to you all gentlemen? That when you are a party, especially in opposition, or when you have a party that has the pedigree that UPC has, the question you'll be asking is, how do you position yourself to challenge what Museveni and the NRM are put in place to be able to have a better chance?
But you see, from what I'm telling you, if they have raised or even lowered the standard, whereby politics is about giving out money, soap, and I mean, how do you match them if you are not going? Because in many of these campaigns, you've been around, where people tell something, they'd say, that man talks very well, but he doesn't give anything. And that's what somebody is looking for. Yes, so that is a problem.
See, Charles, I agree with Nicholas, but the argument should be twofold. One is that the NRM, especially President Museveni, is benefiting from the social and economic distortions created by him.
Precisely.
And is a master.
Deliberately.
And is a master in those distortions. So the massive support of the NRM is actually the effect of the distortions created by the Museveni governance. And the people are seeking refuge in NRM. That is agreed. But it doesn't also imply that the opposition is devoid of weakness. Clearly, Charles, in this country, there is a yearning from the population for true leadership, inspirational leadership, people who stand by what they stand.
Precisely.
It is absent. With or without NRM distortions, people are willing to overcome the distortions, provided they have clear-headed leadership in opposition. I'll give you examples. Nandala Mafabi is in the parliament against all odds. Winnie Chiza is in the parliament against all odds. The most recent is this girl in Luero, Nabu Kenya, in the parliament against all odds. You get the point? So you find that where the people realize that the person representing their interests is genuine, they are willing to ignore the distortions of NRM. And unfortunately, there are many wolves that have gone to pretend to represent the ideals of the people who want the status quo changed and then betray the people.
So you think the president was right when he talked about wolves in the opposition?
In fact, he's the chairman of wolves in NRM. Before he talks about opposition, let's agree that one. They are wolves either way. You shouldn't say they're only in opposition. So if you have ideological bankruptcy in the opposition, don't expect the population to ignore the distortions deliberately created to manipulate them.
Let me meet up from there with Jimmy. Chris calls it ideological bankruptcy. When your father started out, coming out of Kenya where he had lived for some time, working in those sugar factories and mobilizing unions, he was starting from zero. When the founders of Democratic Party started, they were starting from zero. At least the UPC of now has a foundation that Obote built and people who thought like him. The question is not the manipulations of President Yoweri Museveni and the NRM, it is the failure of you guys in the opposition to rise up the equation and challenge the status quo and devise means that mobilizes this same population of this country that saw things differently before to see them from your perspective. What did you say?
No, I think it's a mixture of both. You cannot write out the effects of what Nicholas and Chris have described of the way things have changed. That you can find somebody, the reasons for voting are not looking at social services and whatever. Somebody can agree, okay, there's no medicine in the clinic. My child, even if they go to school, they're not going to really amount to anything. But then you ask where they're voting, they say, no, they're going to vote President Museveni and NRM. Now, what is the reason for that one? I think on the aspect of opposition, we need to present something which, for lack of a better word, a bankable alternative. Something which is real, but also well thought out. And that is something which opposition really has to work on very clearly and come out and engage the population. Going back to the issue which you had raised earlier, UPC did not lose ground as far as parliament. We actually remained stagnant, but we lost in different areas. In West Nile, we conceded ground. In Acholi, we conceded ground. In Teso, we conceded ground. But in Lango, we increased our ground. So the numbers remained the same. Local government, we actually increased considerably in Lango, also in Acholi, and also in Teso. So at some level, UPC did not suffer much of what you're terming as the opposition contraction. We remained more at the same level, except in local government we expanded. And a lot of that one was key to what are the issues. And this is something which I really want to appeal to other politicians and people of Uganda. We need to be very clear on how we're going to transform this country. And we also need to move away from making everything about Museveni. In order to be able to change this country, we have to look beyond, and we have to look at the reality of what is there.
But Jimmy, when you say we need to be able to look beyond and stop making everything around President Museveni, some of your critics say you have been hobnobbing with Museveni, you invited him to your traditional wedding, and he made a contribution, and they say actually out of UPC, he kind of has captured you and the family, and that is why UPC doesn't have leadership. I don't know how you respond to that.
I totally...
You've had that criticism.
I've had the criticism, but I totally disagree with it. I am very clear ideologically where I stand. And I know exactly what it is that I am seeking as something which will work towards a better Uganda. One of the key issues which keeps coming up and which I've tried to keep raising here, education. If we continue with this education as it is, and the products coming out of this education system, look ahead 10, 15, 20 years. Where's Uganda going to be?
It's a good argument you're making, Jimmy. We need to take the break. But it's a good argument you're making.
Let me help
the
Jimmy
question
here.
is, you help him after the break. Let me just put the question, and then we can come and I'll pick it up from you. The question is, you must be able, as political leaders, to change the perceptions that people hold about you, especially if you're in the opposition. If you haven't changed that about UPC, about FDC, about DP, about NRM, how do you gain the traction to articulate the ideas that you're talking about? Let's pick this up after a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and we are discussing the opposition and its readiness towards 2016 elections. The big question is, will they coalesce? Will they form a united stand? Or can they, as individuals, push a meaningful challenge against the national resistance movement? Just before you took the break, I put a question, which I'll spread out to all of you gentlemen here. The question of, you're saying, don't focus on Museveni. Move beyond President Museveni.
Yes.
But you're not showing the alternatives. Chris,
Yes.
with you.
You see, James Akena here must, I understand that the problems in this country cannot be alienated from President Museveni. An attempt to do that would be an attempt to think Ugandans are too stupid. Let's come to the Congress.
Is it only the problems or also the any progress that has been made?
Any progress that has been made. Jimmy should accept even the description that, you know, in Lango, UPC increased, in the Acholi, some, then it also seeded the ground. You know, you are still playing into the distortion that was ushered in by NRM. When the Congress was in power, the Congress was as popular in the Toro, Kigezi, Busoga, same for Buganda. The Congress was really everywhere.
It was...
There's some people, Chris, who argue and say that the Congress was able to achieve the success it achieved by what was called gerrymandering, manipulating
whatever the cause for its popularity. I am telling you where the Congress process was. It was very vibrant in Kigezi. It picked on leaders. What happened? You should be worried today that why has the Congress been deliberately boxed to Lango? Is to make it appear a petty and tribal party. Your support in Kigezi was vilified, was traumatized, not to even say they are UPC. And that is not a good mark of leadership. That's not a national leader that looks at politics as a way of managing society. The Congress made Bushenyi its home. Today, the Congress is not heard of in the NRM took over. NRM took over. And that does not mean there are no UPC sentiments there. If a state cannot allow citizens to express their political belonging freely, you must be able to blame that kind of statehood, nation building. That somebody, if you go to Kigezi today, your father's photos are in people's houses. Those old 1980 campaign paraphernalia is in Kigezi. It is in Toro. That can be brought out. And that must worry you. That why did we have to make people refuse what they believe in just because a new dispensation has come in? So even you say it's not about Museveni, you are not seeing it. UPC is suffering because it is seen as a Lango party. And you are comfortable to look at it as a Lango party.
But let me just correct an impression that Chris has made, especially when he says, you know, the way you are speaking, Chris and my brother Akena are speaking, it's like UPC was actually such a near perfect party. No, UPC, especially here in Buganda, you know, whatever support UPC had, I dare say, is that people were actually held hostage by UPC. It is not that it was a popular party. Not at all, you know. And
I think I said except Buganda.
No, you said in parts of Buganda.
No, I didn't. You said except.
Okay, fine, except Buganda.
Yes.
But UPC...
Would you apply the same measure to the rest of the country?
Yeah, even in many places in the country. And you saw that even in the election in 1980. UPC actually participated in gerrymandering in that election in places in Busoga. People were, they announced MPs who had actually not won, you know. So we cannot really measure UPC's popularity, claiming its ideology, and no, not
Nicholas,
really. We can, simply because NRM has let people down, we cannot tell.
Out of the 22 hospitals, which area in Uganda didn't get one from UPC?
Out of the 22 hospitals.
Out of the schools, the IDA schools, which area in Uganda, even in Uganda, which was hostile to UPC,
no, but you
was
see,
a beneficiary of UPC development.
Obore, when you talk like that, you know, as an analyst, you degrade the debate. A government is supposed to put these things in place. They are not doing you a favor. Actually, you pay taxes.
Actually, okay? Perfect now.
You pay taxes.
Has NRM done the way UPC did? That's why I'm bringing this comparison.
No, simply because NRM has failed. Exactly. Simply because NRM has failed. Doesn't mean that
you should not vilify UPC when you are living even under a worse dispensation.
No, I'm not vilifying UPC. I am simply saying, one, if at all Obote built those so-called 22 hospitals,
regardless of political support.
No. Yes. Regardless of political support. First of all, let me make myself very clear. I'm not part of any of these people. FDC, DP, or no.
All of us are not.
No.
Yes.
But I'm simply putting the point very clearly. It's very wrong for us who have elected to analyze these issues to try and create an impression that so-and-so is good because he built 20. For crying out loud, the 22 hospitals did not come out of Obote's pocket. This is taxpayers' money.
But
and they are supposed to do this.
You can also listen. Okay, let me make this point.
You see,
compare that today when President says, I will, if you do this, I will not do this.
Okay.
Obote, regardless of being hated, Obote said, if it is hospitals, they are from taxpayers. Let Buganda receive similar number, Lango will receive. Today, you are living a dispensation where somebody says, I am the one who owns the money. And I decide where to take the money. That's how the comparison comes. Okay. That while the other one used probably...
Yeah, but precisely. Let me just make one last point on this. Just one last one on this. You're telling me about Obote's hospitals. But the people who died, you know, during the reign of Obote, not that he killed them, but because there was insecurity. How did they benefit from those 22 hospitals?
Now again, people go to death. Nicholas, you'll be ashamed of this.
Let's first bring...
You'll be ashamed. There was genocide in his home. There was genocide in my home.
There was also genocide here in Uganda.
Exactly. I am a witness to this deliberate. There was even no war to deliberate murder and rape.
Okay.
You know?
So when we go to war, we lose.
Gentlemen, hold it a moment. Let's bring Jimmy into this discussion, because regardless of this, we started by raising the argument that you are stuck in old glory and you're failing to rise the occasion.
False glory.
To deal with the challenges of today.
First, I need to clarify certain things. The only reason why I made the point about the situation in Lango and the numbers of UPC was to answer what Charles had raised about the contraction of political parties between the 2006 and the 2011 election. So I was just clarifying that one. Yes, I'm disappointed that UPC is not everywhere as it should be.
Or is it claimed to be before?
It was everywhere. Even in the remotest corner of Buganda, I can show you a UPC member who is committed, die-hard UPC member. We were everywhere, but the whole issue of support may vary. The hospitals were actually 24. Originally, they were conceived to be 21, but in order to distribute and other areas raising concerns, they ended up being 24 hospitals. Buganda got 5 out of those 24. Now, when I run a comparison to other African countries developing at that period, what happened in Uganda is not something which you just take for granted that this is what a government should do. It excelled comparatively. Go across Africa, you'll find that what UPC did in Uganda excelled. How the education system was expanded without compromising quality, that is also something which, as a congressman, I definitely say UPC excelled. In that it's not just this is the role of government and they went ahead and did what they were supposed to do. They did it and they did it well. So as a congressperson, definitely I want to reclaim that one. And I'm trying to look ahead. If you look at development, you have to spread it wider. The Asian tigers did not become tigers just out of the blue. The first investment was in the citizenry. It was really in the education system. Then when they built a skilled labor force and they planned and they projected what the needs of the country were, that is when they were able to rise and to meet the challenges. The way we are going in Uganda, it is to whom it may concern. We are churning out graduates left, right, and center, but are we structuring our education system for our needs in the future? And those are the aspects where, going back to the Congress background, you plan for it, you organize it. Even if Buganda, of which I am a son of, was not happy with UPC, if you look at the development, the support to the cooperatives, the whole social infrastructure was geared to benefit. And going back to that issue, what Nicholas was raising on the question of genocide. The other day we were having something in Parliament, and I was really amused because the issue was raised about rigging. Now, in 1980, Luero overwhelmingly voted DP. There were claims of rigging. In 2014, Luero again voted DP. There are still claims of rigging. And yet, the consequence, supposedly, of rigging was genocide. There's rigging in 2014. Are you going to blame UPC for any consequences which happened after that one? And this gerrymandering of constituencies, surely, how do you look ahead and start saying, okay, we're going to draw the constituency like this? Can you even do it today?
Yes, it's done always.
Yes, it's done.
Politically, it's done.
No.
It's a standard measure of dealing with political challenges. You carve out areas where you think it's like this table.
No. If you meander, you're going to give a constituency to another party. If you say you're going to put this one here and whatever, at the end of the day, you have a fixed country called Uganda.
Yes.
Now,
and how you get a majority out of that fixed country called Uganda
I don't accept
is a business that politicians do.
No, if you look at, unless you're saying the gerrymandering was done in 1970, because the constituencies of 1980 were largely based on the preparation for the 1971
elections. I appreciate the use of the word largely based.
Yes.
Not entirely based.
Largely based. There were some adjustments which were made, but those were minor.
Chris was saying we're letting you run away from accountability.
When we go and now discuss the merits and demerits of UPC, then we may not end the show. The UPC I know, the one I'm talking about, went with the body. The UPC we are discussing now, the UPC of Akena and Otunu, which I think has a very big problem. Regardless of what we think of UPC of Obote, it depends on how our world views. But the point now here is, I think Akena and whoever leads UPC, you represent the opposition now. You're just, because you're the one here. If it is here, we'll tell them the same things. One thing assumption you make is that the people of Uganda do not know their troubles. Please get that out of your minds. Ugandans are the ones bearing the brunt of this suffering. The behavior they demonstrate to you who go to lead them depends on their perception of you. The people know they have no schools. They are crying. The parents are out crying there. Right now they are not paying school fees. But some of them opt to go to NRM because they know even if you chose to go for Akena, Akena perhaps could be a client of NRM. So if you have opposition leaders who are clients of a ruling party, the people are left with no choice. But when they identify an opposition leader who identifies with their problems, they go and vote them. They voted Jack Sabit in Ruchiga. I told you they voted Winnie Chiza in Kasese. They voted Nandala in Budadiri.
They voted Akena in Lira.
You get the point? They voted Akena in Lira. Yeah. So you cannot be the same people saying, now the people are not serious. Because you tell them about schools and roads, they end up voting NRM. And then the same people go ahead and vote Jack Wamai in Mbale Municipality. So you should be understanding what are these limitations of the opposition that makes people not be honest with them. One of them is too much suspicion that most of you in FDC, in UPC, are Museveni's clients masquerading to lead opposition parties. In such a situation, it becomes dangerous. People are trooping to Rakatora. People are received by Nalweso quietly. People are having businesses given through dubious means, and they come out and say, we in FDC, we represent you. Don't believe that because people are poor, because they are uneducated, don't believe they are stupid.
I have never said that one. I have never said that one. And the whole issue where I started from is that as opposition political parties, we need to come out clearly on how to address the problems.
And to whom are you throwing that challenge? Because
I'm throwing it internally. No, I'm throwing it to ourselves.
You are in your second term in Parliament. You have colleagues in that Parliament on the opposition benches. Why aren't you doing it? I thought that's what the minimum Ugandans would be demanding of you.
There's this belief that you can walk into Parliament and change the whole agenda of Parliament and get your issues pushed through. It comes from before that one. Before we go into the 2016 elections, we have to develop our policy platforms, which will then inform our manifestos, which will then be put before the people, and then for implementation. But largely, this manifesto, which is going to be manifested.
You have 12 months, hardly 12 months actually, to the next election.
Yes.
And you're saying the way we go there, we need to organize these things. And people asking, if a discerning voter, like myself, Nicholas, Chris Obore, is looking at you, he's been watching and asking, are these guys serious? Are they up to anything? Do you expect someone like me to be making up my mind on who to support now? Because you're going to begin making plans. And a majority of our viewers out there are watching and asking the same question and saying, these guys have been waiting. Look at what he's talking about. Does he deliver it in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months?
It is a process which I will admit UPC is behind time. And this is an issue where we have not had our organs sitting. But it is not too late to be able to sort out, based on the principles for which we stand and looking at what has been happening in the country. Across board, other parties have gone further than we have in developing that platform. And when you talk about...
Like which party would you say?
FDC have gone further than we have. I'm not very sure about the Democratic Party. JEMA, despite being small in size, actually have gone quite far on organizing their platform. Those are the basis where I see opposition coalescing.
So you think a coalition is a viable project?
It is viable depending on the issues which are putting on the table and the issues which bring it together. If we agree on a particular programs and particular approaches to deal with Uganda's problem, then it is possible to get a coalition
UPC
on that
broke
one.
the last attempt to make a coalition and have a joint candidate going into 2011.
Now, that is an issue of a joint candidate. I'm talking about the platform and what you're going to approach. The danger which we have,
UPC failed the attempt.
The danger which we have, and which so many people look at, is you want to project there's this one individual who is going to stand against Museveni. And that is the issue which are saying we need to move away from. We need to come with a package which is going to deal with Uganda's problems.
Can you respond to the specific
over and beyond the issue of President Museveni remaining
Can you respond
in
to the specific concern that UPC failed the last attempt of the opposition to have a joint platform?
I agree, it happened.
Why?
That one I think you have to ask Otunu.
You are a member of the party and a senior one at that?
It was never discussed. It was a decision which was made. I attended one meeting when it was coming close to that one, and there was some cold feet. Personally, before we get there,
yes,
I was deeply involved in the issue of trying to get the common platform, where we had most of the meetings in Katonga Road, trying to sort out the issues on the key areas where the opposition can find a joint platform around issues which we agree on.
Okay, we need to take a break, but Chris raised the critical issue, clientelism to President Yoweri Museveni. I need to respond to that. The same people who vote for you in Lira Municipality vote for Museveni on the national ticket. The people who vote for Jack Sabiti in Ruchiga vote for Yoweri Museveni on the on the presidential election. And the perception is many opposition players are clients of President Yoweri Museveni, are striking deals with him quietly. And I put it to you earlier that your name has been mentioned among those who are clients of President Yoweri Museveni. Very many others have been mentioned. And people do not know if they can trust you with higher office or they can trust the platform for which you claim to represent.
I can state clearly that is not the case. Perception and reality in this particular issue are on different
But you think a very
the point where you're raising that these people voted, in 2006, Kiza Besigye got more votes in Lira Municipality than I did as an area MP. In 2011, President Museveni got the most votes from the presidential in Lira Municipality. What changed? There was a lot of things, a lot of factors, but it's not this clientism which you're talking about, but there are many factors which brought about.
Can we discuss those factors after a short commercial break? We'll be right back. Welcome to the last segment of tonight's Fourth Estate, and we're featuring James Akena. He's a member of parliament for Lira Municipality. He's a member of the Uganda People's Congress. We have Nicholas Sengoba. He's a columnist with the Daily Monitor, and of course me and my colleague Chris Obore. Let me put this question before I come to the other panelists, to Jimmy. What options are you looking at as an opposition heading into the next election?
What options in?
Options in terms of whether you work together or you have the election running. There's that discussion about whether the election gets postponed or doesn't get postponed. The NRM has been doing its own plans. We're wondering what plans you have.
As UPC, we have not sat in any fora to discuss those particular plans. Yeah, basically for 4 years. But
what are the chances that you sit in the last year?
Definitely, I mean, it's a must. We're actually most likely to sit in March to try and salvage, which is next month. I think we're preparing for the 9th of March, which will be the UPC's 55th birthday, to seek unity, renewal, and chart a way forward. Personally, I am not so much in favor of a boycott. And the electoral reforms are overdue. They're late, they're important, but they're being brought into the circuit. On this particular issue, the Kigundu Electoral Commission, when they put out their strategic plan, were actually calling for these reforms at least 2 years back. They wanted these reforms in place 3 years to the elections. So everything is behind time. I also do not support an extension, which is being muted in some quarters at the time of election should be extended. We need to try and sort out as much as we can as quickly as possible and go ahead and prepare to go into the next election. Within our own parties, especially UPC, I really want to see us organize ourselves and get forward with our best foot possible and to recapture the UPC which my brother Chris is talking about, because that is where the foundation is. There are issues which have happened. I don't agree on this thing of Otunu, Akena, whatever. UPC is UPC.
But you're behaving like co-wives.
That's what you have defined.
In fact, the UPC problem today is because Akena and Otunu are behaving like co-wives.
Who am I in UPC? I'm a member of parliament. I don't control the executive. The organs which determine how we move is the National Council, which is the parliament. It's the Delegates Conference, which is the supreme organ. Those are the organs which will determine. It's not Akena or Otunu. Let us go before those organs. If Otunu has a good report to bring, he explains to the organs.
Otunu says you are always in the court sponsoring people to make it a sector not functional. So anyway, let's not reduce the opposition debate to UPC and you and Otunu. Sure. These are just our observations. That you and Otunu are co-wives in UPC and your supporters are lost on what to do. So Museveni will be harvesting them slowly by slowly. But the bigger picture here, Charles, I hear he's saying that he doesn't support a boycott, which I think is picking momentum. Many people are divided on the boycott issue. But I'll refer to the history.
There will be no boycott.
So I even posted on my Facebook page and said, never trust the opposition to boycott any election.
There can be no boycott.
Because one, they will give any argument to support a participation, even when it yields to nothing. And I compare the opposition.
I've seen some groups that are beginning to emerge, registered political parties, I should say, so that will offer candidates.
One, Museveni will create opposition. If he doesn't manage the one he's already managing. Two, the opposition itself will not accept. Because they behave like a team going for a match, while the opponent has selected all the match officials. But they are very upbeat that we are going to play the game and we want to go and win. No, they are going to play, not in the interest of the fans of football, they are going to play, because they are going to play, there will be gate collections. A boycott of that game would mean a loss of the gate collections. In our political terms, there are people... It's
like the Champions League.
Exactly. There are people in opposition whose livelihoods depend on being LOC1 chairman, because you also get a stamp fee. Chairman LOC5, you also pretend tenders. An MP, of course, how will Museveni pay you if you are not in the parliament? So there will be voices against opposition, a boycott, because you are like telling people, you are telling IDPs to boycott relief food when there is no option for food. So it will be terrible. People are starting and saying boycott food relief. Elections to opposition, let me tell you.
Let me just put in this question.
Please do.
This, what he talks about as an over-delayed, long overdue, electoral reform question.
But Charles, don't be taken by Akena. Every election year, there has always been over-delay. There has always been over-delay. There's nothing new.
How just using that.
But the point here is, if you tell opposition to boycott election, you are telling them to boycott their livelihoods. They're not bothered whether opposition president wins or not, as long as Museveni wins, and they're also in what? In a parliament. And the other thing which is going to fail opposition terribly in this country, they have solely been dependent on NRM elements. I faced in 1996. Semogere was duped, took DP to NRM. Then later on jumped out from the IPFC. Those guys, the UPC, that was always against Museveni, embraced Semogere and said, we are forming IPFC. It was a powerful tool. It shook Museveni. That was the end of opposition. 2001, it took an NRM element called Besige to come up. Then there was opposition. 2006, it still Besige was offering. Then it came recently, now it has been bastardized. When Sejusa comes up, oh, he's our man, we're embracing him. They don't take time to build their own philosophy. They are now dependent on who is disagreeing with Museveni. They say,
so now it's Sejusa and
Now Sejusa He's beaten like a child that has cried and has had no rescue. He's too quiet now. He's tired. He's in a state of catharsis. He's just there. Opposition is lost. Now, the only thing you can talk about in 2016 is how Mbabazi, again, a Museveni comrade, plays out. But you to think how DP, UPC, FDC will play out, you are deceiving people.
Okay.
These ones are dependent on what happens in NRM. And because of that, they have not been building their structures. They are focusing on Museveni. They are not doing cadre identification. They are not training their leaders. They are waiting for Mbabazi to come and say, I'm launching. Then they say, at least Mbabazi. When Museveni defeats Mbabazi, they go back to ground zero. And they say, you see, but the people, the education is dead, the hospitals are dead. These guys have no program at all. Completely. This one.
Because I need to pick it up right from there. The question of
but Chris is
Jimmy
saying
talks about
a
the
lot of
ideal.
the things which I said earlier,
No.
and he's now throwing them back at me.
No,
as
but
if I'm
seriously,
against them.
they've been waiting to see. He says, don't discuss Museveni. Let's move beyond Museveni. But they're waiting for Museveni to disagree with one of his colleagues, and then they will have some.
No.
I've
never said that one.
No, you haven't said it. I'm saying, you are saying.
No,
as
Chris is saying that we are waiting for somebody to come. This whole issue of the Messiah complex, I have disagreed, and I've been crying in my party.
He's backed his argument with evidence. Contradict him with evidence.
When have I run and claimed that this is the Messiah and this is the person we should support?
No, not you. You're a member of the opposition.
I am
you
a member of the
represent
opposition.
the collective voice of the opposition, don't you?
I cannot represent the collective voice because I can only speak for myself and I can only speak for the party which I believe in. And on that basis, I do not agree with this Messiah complex that this is what is going to take us forward. I have argued and I've always insisted we need to build our party from the bottom up. We need to reclaim what Chris was talking about, those areas of Kigezi where we have UPC members who are diehard. We need to get back to
you're standing on an anthill and shouting, we need to do this. People are asking you, have you done?
Who has stopped you? Is I am not in charge of the party.
Now, that's your co-wife business now.
No.
You're running away from responsibility, aren't you?
I have done what I can do outside of the structure.
Who is in charge? Who is responsible for UPC, for revival of UPC's glory?
But you see,
listen. Who is going to?
A party has structures, has leadership structures. UPC made a decision in 2010, put Otunu there. He's in charge of the executive.
Isn't that exactly what the co-wife business Chris is talking about?
No, but you see,
if every party member, hold it. If every party member pulls back and says, Otunu is the guy who heads the official UPC structures, so UPC can die on his watch, for us we are not responsible. It is not our responsibility.
Charles,
yes.
I cannot be running this program while you're running it. Right? You are the one who is giving us the various opportunities to speak and whatever. So the structure of a party, I have done the little which I can do, mobilizing outside of the structures. But definitely as a party, we need to sit down and organize ourselves. If you just have this haphazard issue where I wake up tomorrow and say I'm starting this mobilization drive or I'm doing this and I'm doing whatever without any form of organization and where you're channeling those energies, you're going to be defeating yourselves and you're actually trying to split the party. In respect for the unity of the party, we wait for the organs.
Okay.
No, but
the delegates conference will determine how we're going to drive forward.
Akena is quite a powerful man. The question came to me and he answered. But anyway, let me just say this for the benefit of this whole discussion on opposition politics in Uganda at the moment. It is going to be very difficult for whoever wants to analyze and understand and even reach anywhere for these political parties if you don't appreciate, you know, where you have come from, you know. If you don't know when the rain started beating, you'll never know when you started getting wet. Most of these what you call opposition political parties now are full of contradictions. And many of these contradictions are actually instigated by NRM, you know. When these people are doing well, you know, then somebody is pulled out. He says, no, people like the Rurangas of this world, I have left, now I've gone back to NRM. It causes contradiction. And these things, the people who follow the politics, the voter, then is left in confusion, you know? So you must understand that the way, one of the impacts of President Museveni's 29 years in power on the entire body politic and the way we understand and the way political parties are organized is that he has created a situation where you can actually not even have an opposition political party worth its name, you know? The political, if you're going to have,
what do you do in that circumstance?
No,
you go to church and pray?
No, first understand where the politics is. The problem which I have with these people, the Akenas and the FDC and all of them, they're all pretending, you know? They come out and claim, yeah, we are going to do it, we are going to, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do in a situation whereby even your own members of, your own members, you know, are running to the Museveni camp for money? At night they go and eat ugali.
It's not even
what are you going to do?
Not even the members, the leaders themselves.
Even the leaders themselves. What are you going to do?
So what do they do? What do you advise them to do?
First of all, understand where the problem is. If you are genuine, that is, if you want to understand. But the problem you have with these Akenas is that they are looking at, he looks at his constituency. If I go through them and I start earning however many million, whether it's 10, 20, then I'm comfortable. Then from there, once in a while, I shoot off. You know, this hasn't happened. We had 24 hospitals. They were supposed to do 21, but we did this. We helped you. That's what they do. But for you, in Uganda now, we do not have a genuine organization of people who have come together and said, this is what we feel should be done for this country. No, it's not there. It's about individuals and what they are going to get. Then once in a while, they come and blame each other. We have done, but Otunu is not doing it. I've done,
and then Otunu says, I'm trying to do, but Jimmy is failing me. Akena is failing
but because of the 29 years of Yoweri Museveni, his bid to perpetuate himself and his acolytes in power, he has created a situation where you don't have any viable organization that can come to question him. And even for NRM itself, you don't even have individuals within NRM who can rise up and, you know, check his power. You can see what has happened to people like their Mama and Babazis. A political party cannot be run like that. You cannot have a political environment like that where a leader has his way all the time. If you look at all these democracies we talk about, whether it's in the UK or where, Margaret Thatcher, you know, people within her party, you know, they rebelled against her.
I think the best example has been Australia. Australia. They've been kicking out,
you know, John Major, all these people.
Let Jimmy first come in and then Chris, I come to you.
The point which you're making, that works in a parliamentary democracy.
No. That's where I have a problem with you. Now you're going to these semantics.
No, it's not semantics. It's not semantics. Every example you can bring, South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, parliamentary. Australia, parliamentary. Margaret Thatcher, parliamentary. Now, where you have a presidential system, it is actually much harder because the way to check...
I haven't seen that as one of the proposals coming up for debate on the Constitution Amendment.
It's not one of the ones coming for, but it was proposed. A parliamentary system is where you have checks. And in certain countries where the volatility is rather high, without a parliamentary system, I look at Israel, Italy, there would have been a lot of worse contradictions had they not had a parliamentary system. A presidential system, it is much harder to check.
So, Mr. Akena, what you're telling us in the studio and our viewers out there is that you're resigned.
No, I am telling, my personal preference is a parliamentary system. It strengthens the hand of the party, and it also coalesces the parties around ideas. Now, at this current issue with the presidential system, the one prize which everybody is gunning for is the presidency. Irrespective of what you're able to do or whatever, you believe that should you get the presidency...
One quick question. Chris wanted to come in. I'm afraid our time is very short. We need to get out of here. Jimmy, will you be on the ticket in 2016 as a presidential candidate? Maybe possibly leading UPC? I'm hearing that campaigns have started internally and you don't think that Otunu will be coming back if he calls the delegates conference.
The delegates conference has to be held before the 12th of March.
Will it be held?
On the 13th of March, Otunu, his term would have ended. And as UPC, we're trying to avoid getting into that crisis where he's in office, his term has ended, and we don't want to reach that point. So there's
Will you be challenging for the leadership of the party?
There's discussion going ahead. I am going to serve my party in whatever capacity.
Are you considering a run in 2016?
2016, so far I am considering Lira Municipality, but I am definitely going to work for UPC.
Thank you very much.
To put it back on
Charles, the dilemma Akena should know, in our opposition, egos have been projected higher than convictions. Whether parliamentary or presidential, that's just a system, but what's important is the convictions running a particular system. Now, if you are devoid of good convictions on your parties, whatever it will be, parliamentary or presidential, it will still be a circus. Yes. I believe Wafula Gut is finding it difficult to run opposition in parliament because he has to deal with these egos. And since you went to sleep long ago, opposition has been reduced into scandals. All you are good at now is scandalize anyone, including those among yourselves. The biggest blackmailers today are in opposition. If they see one projecting themselves as a better leader, the first thing is someone is doing ABCD. That's very dangerous.
He claims he's being blackmailed. Let him defend himself.
Sometimes I don't know. But try to see, the biggest dilemma that we are going to have in this country will be Uganda post-Museveni. Because now, Museveni is deliberately doing these things because they help him to be in power. To a point today, Charles, if Museveni today said, my son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, is stubborn, I don't want him in UPDF, chase him away, has a strategy. Akena will be the one to say, we're going to use Muhoozi against Museveni. That's how pathetic they have become. Anyone, if Muhoozi came out and said, I'm retiring from the UPDF, I'm seeing my father is not taking the country any better, I'm ready to change this country, I'm telling you, all FDC, UPC, DP, GEMA, whatever it is, will say,
they'll be trooping.
Anybody who removes Museveni for us is welcome. Whether Museveni has agreed with his son that this is our next strategy, to them doesn't matter. That's how pathetic this people have become.
Our time is out. We need to get terrible. No, your last word.
But I just wanted to ask my brother Akena, in the 60s, did you have a presidential or a parliamentary system?
Parliamentary.
Okay. Then if you had a parliamentary system, how was it then possible for Dr. Obote to run through with his schemes of the pigeonhole constitutions and all these sort of things? You know? So that's why I'm telling you, I don't want
Can he answer?
I don't
you don't want him to answer.
Let him answer.
It will take...
No. How was it
Give us an answer.
You want a one-word answer or...
2-3 words.
No, I need more than 2 words. The only thing...
Please.
I can answer with another question. Show me one presidential system, one president who was, as you brought Margaret Thatcher, Thabo Mbeki, who was stopped mid-office. If you can show me one example of a presidential system where it happened, I would take it as from an analyst. At the same time, there's no presidential system in any democracy which does not have term limits. It's the parliamentary systems which don't have term limits, and because of the different checks which are in the system. Cross-check on that one, a president to be stopped midway.
Can you answer the question?
How was it possible? It was done in parliament. The pigeonhole constitution was brought in parliament, was debated, and was passed. You may not be happy how it was done.
Who was pulling the strings?
Subsequently,
who was pulling the strings?
Who
was pulling the strings?
I'm
of the decision?
Who
delivered? Who delivered the pigeonhole constitution?
The pigeonhole constitution, was it debated? Okay, they debated. Did they look at the constitution they were debating? They were told, you will find it in your pigeonholes.
The constitution had collapsed. If you want to go into that part of history, the constitution had collapsed. The ceremonial president and the executive prime minister were on loggerheads. There was we should not deceive ourselves.
We're discussing politics. We're discussing politics, not academics.
No, it's not academics.
Mr. Akena, hold it.
It went through parliament.
What Nicholas is saying.
66 constitution.
What Nicholas is saying
was a holding constitution. 67 was debated for 1 year and passed.
Hold it. What Nicholas is rising to you.
It was passed in 67.
Like you accusing
in parliament.
Like you accusing President Museveni of gathering the NRM caucus to Chankwanzi and securing a sole candidature. President Milton Obote, as leader of the UPC, was able to manipulate everybody who was in parliament to pass the pigeonhole constitution.
And this was,
it doesn't matter whether you have the presidential or parliamentary system.
Precisely.
That's the
no.
You know? So what
you're missing the point which I was trying to raise on this particular issue. The checks in a parliamentary system are not perfect. There's no system which is perfect, but work more effectively. And that's why I asked you,
they didn't work in 1966, 67.
In 1966, it was not...
67, they didn't work.
In 1966, you're talking about 66 first. In 1966, it was not because a Prime Minister woke up one day and said, I am going to do this one because of this. There were circumstances which were happening. If we're denying our history and we're not falling from 64, the polarities which were there, the forces at play, surely we are not doing justice to that. Understand this one.
Akena, a leopard begets a leopard.
Just like a snake
what happened
begets a
to
snake.
the oratory for Milton Obote? What happened with inspiration? Why are you operating like a gorilla? Why are you hiding in parliament? Where are you? There are many who think in Akena we see Obote. Where is Obote? Where is the line in Obote? The charismatic leader.
Let him respond just to get out of here. Our time is out.
I have raised issues where necessary, but I also have to live in the realities of today. And I'm working towards recapturing where the roots came from, but taking into serious consideration what the reality stands for. What is there?
Okay.
I cannot just jump up and suddenly reinvent myself. I am Akena, son
So
of
you're
Obote,
a coward, you're not a leopard.
Okay.
I'm not a coward.
Gentlemen, our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much.
But you see,
Mr. Jimmy Akena.
I am not a coward.
I know you
Our time is out. Our time is out.
Museveni fears elections more than a gun.
Yes.
But there are no people to give Museveni a credible election and a run for his money.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chris Obore. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you very much, Jimmy. We'll be inviting you again to come and continue this discussion. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight. Do join us again next Sunday for yet another exciting discussion right here on the Fourth Estate. Have a good night.